I'd like to talk about who we are and how we got here. Most people think that we came out of Africa, and that's half right, but they omit the part where we went into Africa. But the human species largely evolved here in the Eurasian continent. Homo erectus lived here, split off to become the Neanderthals and the Denisovans, who evolved just in Eurasia. And then later, some of the Homo erectus migrated across the then fairly dry Mediterranean. You could wade through it and down into Africa. So that's how we happened to evolve in Africa. But our species did, 150,000 years or so ago, we developed speech, which gave us a tremendous competitive advantage over the other species of humans. Then 50,000 years ago, give or take generously, we migrated back up through Israel and up into Europe again, and we continued to develop. We got better and better stone tools and pottery and this and that. And then after the last ice age, 12,000 years ago, we we migrated back into Europe, where, by the way, we encountered the Neanderthals and the Denisovans, and we handled it the way mankind has handled these things throughout history: raped the women and killed the men. So we interbred with the Neanderthal women. The initial cross had about 6% Neanderthal genes, as far as we can tell, but the hybrids aren't terribly fertile, so now we're down to 2% Neanderthal DNA in us Europeans, more than the Africans. They don't have any. We continued to evolve. We got better and better stone tools. We developed pottery. We developed art and other stuff like that. And at the end of the Ice Age, 12,000 years or so ago, we were fairly comfortable, and we were also getting crowded because it takes 2 square kilometers to feed one hunter-gatherer. So we started farming, bit by bit, of course, and it happened first in the Middle East, or most enthusiastically, and they started to farm wheat and millet and other things you could eat, and they started to raise animals: cows, pigs, goats, and sheep. So this gave them a stable source of food, and they could have a denser population. The idea caught on. The neighbors to the east copied them, and agriculture spread into India. The neighbors of the west copied them. Agriculture spread through Turkey and over to Greece and up into Europe through Bulgaria and up here to Ukraine. The people who arrived here, as best I can figure, spoke languages related to Turkish, not to our language. What happened on the other side of things, on the west side, on the east side of the Dnieper River, agriculture was slower to come. There were steppes stretching from Ukraine to China. And the steppes were a little bit hard to farm because they had hot summers and cold winters, and they were kind of barren. They didn't have much cover, much protection. And there was a big problem for livestock because sheep and goats and cows and pigs don't do real well in winter because they can't paw their way through the snow to get food, and they can't break the ice to get something to drink, so they starve in the winter. Big problem. But our ingenious ancestors said, you know, there are animals that do pretty well here, namely horses, or wild horses all over the steppes. The problem with horses was they had a nasty disposition. There was a reason that they hadn't been tamed, because they were just too ornery. But necessity is the mother of invention. We finally did tame them. Anecdote here. Although modern horses are descended from a large number of females 8,000 years ago, one male predominantly, because there was only one guy that seems to have been mild enough that they could corral him and keep him in captivity. And he's pretty much the father of modern horses. But anyhow, tame them we did, and so we had a source of food that could live through the winter. Horses have a lot of meat on them. But the guys, our ancestors, said, you know, we could probably ride one of those things. So probably 6,000, 7,000 years ago, somebody tried riding on one of these horses that they had tamed for food. And it worked. So not only did they herd horses for food, but they could ride horses to herd the horses. And they could ride horses to herd the other things that they kept, cattle and sheep and so on. And this made them about 4 times as productive, because if you're on horseback, you can let them graze over a much bigger pasture area. So these people became fairly rich. But there's a problem with livestock, which is it's pretty portable. It has feet and it will go wherever somebody leads it. And these cattle herders, these livestock people, had trouble with theft. People would steal their stuff, and they got pretty good at fighting to keep it. So they became very good mounted warriors. Riding the horses, they developed short bows that they could use to shoot at things, and they became pretty formidable warriors. Once you're good at a war as on defense, we're pretty good at offense too. So they started to conquer their neighbors. So these mounted warriors were pretty good, and they spoke Indo-European languages, which is the ancestors of everything from Northern Indian to Spanish and English. And they pushed and pushed and pushed. They came up against the Tripoli people, the farmers through Bulgaria, here in Ukraine, and pretty much overpowered them. The same trick as the Neanderthals. They killed the men and raped the women. So most of our genome is from the Indo-Europeans, as best they can figure, the people who developed our languages. And that put us here. From this, we've branched into a number of different Indo-European languages, Slavic and Romance languages and Germanic languages. There are just 3 of those branches. And we pretty much account for the majority of the population of Europe. That's how we got where we are. We ascended into the mastery of the world, controlling 85% of the land area a century and a half ago. But it all changes. We've become very nice and stopped pressing on our neighbors, and that's what's happening today. Madam Toastmaster.